Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over a story that is hands down the most incredible story, the greatest story I've ever covered on this channel. Not to mention all the channels actually. This story is so good, and believe me, you'll agree with me, that you will have the feeling like you did when you walked out of an amazing movie. Like 30 years ago, I walked out of Jurassic Park, and believe me, I had this feeling after reading this guy's story, and it is long. This story is about a guy who, just like many of you, if you're honest, made mistakes. Met that gal, thought she was amazing, rushed into a relationship, rushed into a marriage, and at first everything was great. And then eventually, the red flags were there, and in this case, with her work and coworkers and all that. Now, at the time, this guy wasn't aware of red flags because he doesn't know. And you guys would be aware of that because you watched this show. And that's where problems started to arise. You're going to see that one day his wife comes to him and says that she is attracted to women and wants to open their marriage to bring women in the bedroom. And unfortunately, this guy says, no, not happening. That's not what I agreed to. And she lets it go at that moment. The problem is, at that moment, that should have been the time to end the relationship, but he didn't know any better. And when people bring that up, that means usually they either are already hooking up and cheating, or they have somebody in mind. And you're going to see then, guys, what she does. What she does to get her way. And let me tell you, the amount of manipulation and calculating and the chess game she plays with him and his emotions is like something like she could be Emperor Palpatine's daughter. That's how good she truly plays this guy like a fiddle, I'm sorry to say. However, at this guy's low point, that's when he turns things around and makes an incredible comeback. And he plays her like a fiddle. He plays her like a musical prodigy would play a fiddle. And in the end, gets his revenge. And she never sees it coming. And it is a damn good one. Now, just like any amazing story, guys, this is long. In fact, this is also the longest story I've ever covered. So therefore, I must break this into 3 parts. But before you all want to throw shit at me, don't worry, I'm publishing this part now. I'll do part 2 in a few hours in the early evening, East Coast time, and then part 3 later in the evening, East Coast time. So you guys on the East Coast are going to have a late night. Those of you guys in Europe, you're going to have to see the rest tomorrow morning, and you guys on the West Coast, you're good to go. But anyhow, guys, I've said enough, and again, get your popcorn, you're going to enjoy this. Starts off, he says, hello SSM. I've been listening to your channels for about 6 months. I was listening to a post last Thursday on my way back home from work. You were talking about the educational benefits of the stories people send you, as well as the benefits of writing down and sharing what one does when confronted by a cheating wife. I decided that might be a good thing for me to do, so here it goes. My wife ran out of our home after her lover a week ago last Friday night. I'm sitting here working through my thoughts, trying to make some sense of what happened to my marriage, my wife, and my life. Hopefully, you and your listeners can help me with this. Many of the mistakes I made getting to this point are obvious, but please point out the many that I've missed. Brother, I will most certainly point them out to help you and other guys in the future. This has been a bizarre 6 weeks of my life, resulting in the discovery of my wife's lying, manipulation, and her affair. I came up with a plan to deal with my wife's infidelity and to take some measure of revenge on her and her lover. Please let me know if you think I've gone too far and if there's anything further I can do to protect myself. Brother, believe me, you did not take this too far. It took me an hour to read your story this morning over breakfast, a long breakfast, and holy shit, you're a master. You're a goat. It was awesome. And she deserves everything that has come to her. I'm just dying to tell people what happened, but I have to keep my mouth shut, otherwise nobody's going to watch the show. Let me give you some backstory here. My name is Jerry, and my wife's name is Ada. We're both 31 years old, and we met 10 years ago. In 2013, both fresh out of college and as new hires in a training class at an old established company in the upper Midwest. The company has been managing people's money for nearly 100 years. Ada and I were from the same mid-sized city in the Southwest, 1,000 miles from where we are right now. When I discovered that Ada was from my hometown, I asked her to lunch and she accepted. We talked about our hometown, people we knew in common, places we went to growing up, restaurants that we liked. We had lunch together, alone or with others, nearly every day after that. We started to hang out after work and on weekends. Way too much. I know you're in a new area, and it's nice to get to know people and people from back home, but obviously you saw her more than a friend. This is way too much too soon. You got other things to do, my man, but You were young, you were smitten with her and all that. I was able to buy a nice condo with an inheritance from my grandfather. Ada lived in a small, gloomy rental, and that's where she belonged. And she gradually began to spend more and more time at my place. And soon Ada began leaving clothes and makeup at my place. That wasn't an accident, brother. She was marking her territory. She's already showing her tactics and skills early on. But they all do that, let's be honest here. Most days we went to work together in the morning and came back to my place together after work. We spent every weekend together. Too much. That communicates to a woman that I really like you and I'm easy. And she can pull bullshit, which, let me tell you, she will. Because we both had equal status at the company, since both of us had the same job, we didn't violate any company policies by seeing each other. The company didn't care that we were dating. Smack! I should have smacked you earlier. Guys, don't date your coworkers. I know you guys know this, but it must be said repeatedly. It's not a place for romance. It's building your career, taking home a paycheck. If she left the job, that would have been different. But it is what it is. He knows. After about a year, I'd asked Aunt Ada to move in with me. Smack! Too soon, and only if you're going to marry her should you do that, and don't get me started on that. She was spending all her time at my place anyway, so why not have her give up her apartment and stay with me? Well, there's lots of reasons, brother. She agreed immediately, shocker, and asked me why I'd taken so long and hugged and kissed me. Ada was on a month-to-month lease, so she gave her notice and we moved her in. Life was great. I guarantee you she switched to month-to-month knowing darn well sooner or later you'd ask her to move in. Ada and I were put in different work groups. Our job was to find new clients who would allow us to manage their money. My group's boss was great. She was helpful, always seemed to know the right thing to do, and gave credit where credit was due. We all loved her. Ada's boss was a jerk, and she hated him. He was the opposite of my boss, and after a year with him, she realized that she was not going to advance in his group. She could transfer to another group in the company, so she began looking for another job. Or she couldn't transfer to another group, blah, 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 so she began looking for another job. Around the time she moved in with me, Ada found a job at a relatively new, smaller, boutique money management company about 10 miles from my job. She was very excited about the new place. Everyone was our age or younger. Almost everyone was single. They all hung out together after work and on weekends. So here's where the problems arise. Everybody there was single and either younger than them or their age. And by the way, I want to have my money being managed by these fucking people. And you'll see more. You'll see why I said that in a moment. This is not good. She's married. And remember about who your girl works with, spends time with. You'll see. It was a very friendly, close-knit group of people. It was a much less structured atmosphere than where I still worked. Ada told me that it reminded her of college, always a party atmosphere. Everyone was welcoming and helpful to her. She thought she could do well and advance her career at that new place. Ada and I got married in June 2016, our hometown. Smack! After 3 years of knowing her, brother, and you were 24, give or take, too young, too soon. I know you know, but I have to point this out. You need to spend years getting to know the girl and also making her realize that she's got to work to get you. And then she'll appreciate it. When a guy rushes in too quickly, she doesn't appreciate that as much. And it also shows her, I got this guy. And when women think they got their guy, guess what that makes them do? Many times, pull bullshit. And this woman here is the queen of bullshit. When we talked about our future, we discovered we discussed someday opening our own money management shop, but that was some years in the future. We also talked about having children, but we both agreed that we would have to wait a couple of years. Well, thank God for that. I was doing great at my job, and Ada was building a client base that would soon pay off for her. We got a rescue dog from the local humane society. Good for you, brother. We called him Charlie. Ada was happy, and I was happy, and Charlie the dog was happy. Life was great. Well, so far, the only thing I agree with you on is adopting the dog. That's awesome. But aside from that, you know how I feel about the rushing into things move that you did? Ada would occasionally go for drinks after work and with her coworkers. She always called when she was going to be later than usual and to tell me that she was going for drinks with her workmates. When we discussed this, she told me she wanted to build camaraderie with her coworkers. They all went out after work together pretty much every night, and she didn't want to be the odd person out. She wanted to be considered part of the team. So I'm sure you guys can already see a problem here. Now, I get, depending on the work environment and everything, you got to get along with your coworkers and all that, and often it's expected to go out for a drink. Believe me, I know that. But every night during the week, no. Especially with a married woman. And again, remember, he described that her coworkers as all single or younger than she is or her age, and behaving like a bunch of frat boys and sorority girls. That's a bad place, and you're going to see real quick. She told me that I was more than welcome to join them. She knew you didn't want to go, but she didn't stay long, and it was always a last-minute decision whether to go or not. She would always see who was going for drinks before deciding to go with them. There had to be at least one or two other women going, and she tried to avoid a couple of men in the office. The guys who hit on her at work. She could handle their advances at work, but if either of those guys were going, she didn't want to deal with them after work in a bar, so if they were going, she did not go. I asked what she meant about guys hitting on her. She said flirting, compliments, sexual innuendo, and being asked out on dates. Asked out on dates, don't they see that ring on your finger? Aren't you wearing your ringer? Aren't you wearing your ring, sweetheart? One of these guys even asked her to go on a ski weekend with him and some others from work. She told him she would ask me if I wanted to go skiing, and he responded that no husbands were allowed. Well, this guy's a freaking scumbag. A husband would get in the way of the two of them hooking up. Ada said she told him no husband, no wife, and she made it clear to the guy that he and her would never hook up. So this sounds to me like harassment, and I think that's warranted to say here. And believe me, if she was really bothered by this, she would act accordingly, and it would be warranted. But obviously now that's going on. She told me if I was uneasy, she would stop going for drinks. But she thought it was better for her to get to know her fellow coworkers in a more relaxed setting. Every night, for hours on end, and with all this bullshit, and she truly loved her guy, she would make a complaint about the shit that was going on being said to her, or she'd find a new job. Believe me, she has the power. This is present day, I might add. This shit's going on, guys. This is past the prime of Me Too. Believe me, she can handle this and make out like a bandit, and we all know it. But she does not, and one has to ask why. She could keep the predators at bay. I went for drinks with her and her coworkers after work a couple times. Everyone was very nice. I told her I wasn't concerned if she went with her coworkers for drinks once or twice a week. I trusted her completely. Smack. Actually, he wrote smack, so I'm responding to that. Yeah, but you know what, bro? She hadn't given you any reason not to trust her. Yeah, in fairness here, the way you described it, she didn't give you any reason, and you didn't have this knowledge at the time. You are now all the wiser based on what happens in this story, as well as what you've learned from watching my channel and other channels. And this is why I do what I do, guys, multiple times a day to share these stories so guys don't get fucked over, sadly, like what's about to happen to this guy. But don't worry again, our hero conquers, triumphs in the end. My crazy 6 weeks began in late April 2023. So we're talking 2 months ago. This is fresh and new. Ada told me we needed to talk. We sat down, and she confessed that she'd always been attracted to women as well as men. Well, gee, wife, you could have mentioned that prior to us saying I do. That kind of changed things in our relationship dynamic here, don't you think? I was the only man she was interested in being with, but there are women she found attractive and fantasized by having SCX with. She had experimented with gals in college, but was always conflicted about that. Now your ordinary guy would be like, yeah, bring him home, baby. But anybody with a brain knows this is a disaster waiting to happen. Ada realized now that she's bisexual. Sure. She hadn't acted on her fantasy since college, and she's been completely faithful to me since our first lunch together 10 years ago. No men or women, but she has the itch, and it's been becoming hard not to scratch it. Been faithful, huh? Yeah, we'll come back to that on part 2. She said she didn't want to go outside our marriage. She would never have relations with anyone without me. She thought that maybe we could find a woman whom we both found attractive and we'd be agreeable to a three-way. We could both have sex with her together. What did I think? What do I think? I think you need to hit the road. That's what I think. We're done. Unfortunately, that's not how this goes. We had committed early on to not hide anything from each other, and we agreed we could discuss anything with each other, be completely open, not get mad, and be taken seriously by the other person. So I took what she said seriously. I thanked her for trusting me with her admission, but I wasn't interested in having sex with anyone but her. And you're a good man. I told her I didn't want to have anyone else in our bed or in our relationship. This was a no-go for me. Good for you for saying no fucking way. The problem is that this is asking to open up the marriage. Instead of her dating or whatever, or other dudes, just bring another chick. And by the way, sometimes in these stories, these women brings these things up to their guy so that they can get the guy to participate, and then they have freedom to go do what they really want to do. But at this moment, this guy should realize this is not who I married, or who I thought I married. Either she's hooking up already, as much as I don't want to think about that, or has somebody else in mind, and things are pretty much over. But I don't fault him. Most guys don't know this type of stuff. Ada told me she was disappointed but understood. She wouldn't bring it up again. Her fantasies would remain just fantasies. She would never have that sort of relationship with anyone without me present and on board. Ada said she was completely happy and fulfilled by our SCX life. She just got a hankering for other women at times. Please don't be upset with her. My needs and wishes were always her priority. Yeah, we'll come back to that one. I didn't know what to say. I wanted her to be honest and sincere with me about everything, but her saying that she was bisexual and asking for a three-way really threw me off. This was a side of her that I'd never known about. I told that it was distressing to hear that she wanted to have sex with anyone else, with or without me involved, but I was glad she felt that she could be open with me. And that's when it's over. Sorry to say that, but it's the truth, and we all know it. Ada saw that I was really upset. She told me she wished she hadn't brought it up. It wasn't that important. Ada didn't bring it up again. Yeah, I'm sure she was deeply troubled by you being upset. Ada's company had a mentoring program where new hires were helped by older employees. Ada had been mentored by a woman when she went to work there, and she was currently mentoring another woman, Kathy. Kathy had been hired about 4 months earlier. Kathy and Ada became close friends, even though Kathy was about 4 years younger than we were. Kathy had followed her boyfriend from LA when he got a job here. Kathy found a job at the firm where Ada worked. Okay, so Kathy's probably about 27. Late 20s, still in her prime. Ada and I met Kathy and her boyfriend for drinks one Saturday. Kathy was very pretty, smart, and funny. Her boyfriend made it clear to all of us that he really didn't want to be there. He didn't say much, but Kathy and Ada and I enjoyed ourselves despite him. Kathy was very hard not to like. I could see why she and Ada became such good friends. The first week of May, Ada called me at work and said that Kathy had been hit by her abusive boyfriend, who had thrown her out of their apartment. She didn't know anyone who could take her in except Ada and me. Huh. Imagine that. How fortunate you have a spare bedroom. Remember, this is the wife who mentioned not too long ago that she has fantasies about playtime with other gals. Would it be okay if she stayed with us until she could make other arrangements? Could she stay in one of the spare bedrooms for a week or so? Week or so, huh? I asked Ada if Kathy's boyfriend would be a problem. She said that Kathy still had to pick up most of her clothes from their apartment, but the three of us could go do that while her boyfriend was at work. But a confrontation with her boyfriend was unlikely. He wouldn't know where she would be living. If he wanted to cause trouble, he would do it where they worked. I said okay, and Kathy began to stay with us that night. She's been with us ever since. Smack! Well, as you're about to see, no good deed goes unpunished, and he should have connected the dots with the pretty girl that she's mentoring at the office, and her mentoring she wants to have playtime with other gals. I'm sure Kathy has money and could find a place and have to stay with you. Living with Kathy has been great in some ways and a challenge in others. Ada usually wears only a t-shirt to bed and walks around the condo in the morning in only her t-shirt. Kathy walks around in the morning wearing only panties and a very loose singlet with a giant armholes nearly down to the waist. It's not much of a shirt and doesn't really hide anything. Her panties don't have much to them. They barely cover her crotch and not much else. Between my two flatmates, it's been hard to concentrate in the mornings. So you're having your freaking breakfast, and here comes Kathy and Ada strolling around and barely wearing anything. I mentioned this to Ada, asking her to tell Kathy to cover a bit more. Ada could also put on some pants. Ada put her hand on my cheek, leaned over, and whispered in my ear, "Try not to look," she said, and then patted my cheek, kissed me, and then went on with what she was doing. End of discussion. Interesting living with the two of them. You're the man of the house. If you want your guest, and she is a guest, to cover herself up, just fucking say that. Remember, when a guy rushes into a relationship, makes it too easy for the gal gains power and realizes she can get her way with her guy. Anyhow, Kathy, Ada, and I became good friends. Oh, I'm sure you did. We hung out together both in the condo and when we went out. Ada was always a lot of fun to be with. Together, Kathy and Ada together were insane fun to be with. Everything from running through water sprinklers in the park topless to trying to sneak into pro baseball games. We could sneak in and end up paying. They were always ready for some adventures and dragged me, the cautious homebody, along with them. Running through sprinklers in the park topless. I get being forever young, but this sounds forever childish. And we're just getting started. They refused to go anywhere without me, and honestly, it wasn't very hard to get me to go along. Pushover. If you think we were behaving as badly as teenagers, that's probably an insult to teenagers. Well, you are 31, in the millennial class, and you all tend to take a little longer to grow up. No offense, but don't worry, bro. So the last few weeks have been really entertaining. Kathy is a great house guest, always agreeable, always happy, helpful with her chores, a great cook. She knows when to give Ada and me our space when we need it. And there's always Kathy's morning attire to look forward to viewing, although I try not to look. Bullshit, you're checking out her ass. Just admit it. We're all dudes here. A few weekends ago, Ada suggested that the three of us stay home and get high. I smelled trouble. Neither Ada nor I drink much, and we rarely smoke, but every once in a while we stay home and chill. Ada got some dope from someone at work. She got weed, but also some X. We smoked weed some in the past, but we never tried X. And I wouldn't begin trying now. Your body, don't poison your body, for goodness sake. We smoked weed, blah, blah, blah. At least I never had done X before. Ada convinced me to try it. So the three of us put on a movie, took some X, and passed around the joint. Smack. Fucking dumbass. If you didn't want to do it, then don't do it. That stuff's poison. You got one life to live. Why poison your goddamn body? Well, this is the personal trainer and the Puritan here saying what I think. Ada pulled me down between them on the couch. It was hard to focus on the movie. We got comfortable and very high. I wonder what your wife has in mind trying to drug you here between these two fine-looking women. Ada suggested we play a game with the smoke. She would take a drag, blow the smoke in my mouth, and then I would turn and blow the smoke into Kathy's mouth. Then Kathy would take a drag and blow the smoke in my mouth, and I would do the same to Ada. Our mouths would get close to each other, but wouldn't touch. After a few times, Ada began to put her lips on mine to blow the smoke into my mouth. It was basically a kiss to transfer the smoke. Ada said she wanted to do this with Kathy, so both leaned over me and kissed. A long kiss. Ada then took another drag and kissed me, putting the smoke into my mouth. Ada then climbed in my lap, took my head in one hand, Kathy's in her other hand, and gently pushed our lips together to exchange the smoke. Kathy and I kissed while my wife Ada held us together. We were all very high by this point, then Kathy took a drag and kissed me back. Okay, so if you all were single, you'd be having a good old time, but you're married. And remember whose idea was to bring this pretty looking woman into your house and do all the things you do and seduce you by her walking around her freak almost butt naked in the morning. And now, guess whose idea was to get you drugged? Can you see what's going on here, guys? The master manipulator here. And remember, what happens in these things when a gal asks for an open relationship, open marriage? If she gets the husband to agree to it and he partakes in something, now she gets a free pass. With the kissing, weed, X, and Ada moving around on my lap, I was getting pretty turned on. Ada, of course, noticed and exclaimed, "What's this?" "Kathy, we woke the sleeping giant. Another guest at the party. Kathy, Kathy, let's make him feel welcome." She got off my lap, opened my shorts, pulled them down, and began to stroke me. I hope YouTube doesn't flag me here for this. I gotta start speaking in code here. This is starting to turn into, well, you guys get the point. Kathy watched. I closed my eyes and just enjoyed it. I felt something change, opened my eyes, and saw it was Kathy's hand now stroking me. Not Ada's anymore. When Ada saw that I didn't mind what Kathy was doing, Ada got up, took her clothes off, and grabbed both mine and Kathy's hands and said, "Let's go to the bedroom." Ada led us into the bedroom, where she helped Kathy out of her clothes while I watched and then helped me with the rest of mine. The two joined me in bed. Well, enjoy it, because things are about to go to hell in a fucking handbasket in ways you wouldn't believe. It was an interesting experience, I bet. One thing was evident, though. Ada seemed only interested in Kathy and I having SCX together. Ada sort of acted as though she was the stage director, taking Kathy's hand and guiding it on me, bringing Kathy's mouth onto me, putting a condom on me, and then gently pulling Kathy on top of me. Ada and I never used condoms, so I had a fleeting thought that where had they come from? But there are other things more interesting to think about. Ada kissed us both, caressed us both, but didn't have SCX with either one of us the entire night. When Kathy and I were done, the three of us fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms. Oh, how romantic. Now remember, isn't this your wife who claimed that she's attracted to other gals, but yet for some reason it's hands off of this Kathy character? Must be a coincidence. Maybe she's having an off night. I was the first one to wake up the next morning. I just lay there in their arms and thought about what had happened. I was still high, had been very high the last night, but realized this was a huge problem for our marriage. You're darn right, sir. I vowed this would never actually happen, or never happen again. I would ask for Ada's forgiveness for my infidelity. Smack! Dude, she set this whole thing up. Come on here. I knew that when she woke up, down from the drugs, and realized what happened, she'd be furious with me and would likely kick Kathy out the door. Yeah, I would have bet on that. She'd probably tell me she wanted a divorce. I will beg her to forgive me. Smack! Well, the only one's going to be begging will be Ada down the road. I gently eased myself out of bed without waking them, put on some gym shorts and a t-shirt, and went to make coffee. I was dreading the confrontation with Ada about my adultery. I felt incredibly guilty about what I had done. I loved Ada and felt I had betrayed her love for me. The smell of coffee must have awakened them, and they came into the kitchen. Both were completely naked, laughing and holding hands. I looked at Ada, who smiled at me and came over to kiss me. Ada patted me on the butt and said, "Well done, stud." And she seemed happy, not mad at all. Kathy also kissed me, patted me on the butt, and said, "Very well done, stud." The thought was hysterical. They thought this was hysterical and laughed and laughed. What the fuck? What the fuck? This is what happened. This was a setup, brother. I asked if they wanted eggs and sausage for breakfast. And I think that one of them got no sausage the night before, dude. We ate, and they made plans for us to walk around the park later. They acted as if nothing had happened. This was nuts. I had SCX with another woman, and no one seemed to care but me. I finally said we needed to talk about what happened. Both smiled, and Ada said, "Okay, what did I want to talk about?" What an asshole. Come on. I said I just had SCX with another woman, and you, Ada, my wife, didn't seem to care at all. You, Kathy, don't seem to be concerned that you had SCX with your good friend's husband. Am I the only one concerned about how this affects our marriage? And gentlemen, as I say, Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0. Ada came over to me and sat on my lap and asked me what I thought we should do about it. I said that Kathy has to leave immediately, and Ada and I need to start marriage counseling. I asked Ada for forgiveness and told her I want to save our marriage. Ada asked, "Forgive you for what? Save our marriage from who? Kathy?" She then moved off my lap to one of my thighs and asked Kathy to come over, and she sat on my other leg. Both had their arms around me, and I put my arms around their waist. Ada said, "Kathy's not going anywhere unless she wants to." Ada continued, "Our marriage is in great shape. We just have someone else with us who both love and cherish us." She kissed me and then kissed Kathy. Kathy kissed me, put her head on my shoulder and said, "I love both of you. I don't want to go anywhere." So began our life as a throuple. We pretty much did everything together. Kathy moved out of the spare bedroom and into our bedroom. The three of us slept together every night. I would make love with Ada while Kathy watched, or with Kathy while Ada watched. Ada and Kathy kissed and touched each other, but never made love. At least not while I was around. And gentlemen, that is the end of part 1. We're at a half-an-hour mark here. I know you're screaming. And I'll be doing part 2 later on tonight. And now you're going to see where Emperor Palpatine's daughter, this Ada here, everything comes into play, what she was planning all along and all that. And you definitely going to be shaking your heads. But then, of course, then way later on today, part 3, and see how that whole thing ends here. But let me tell you, we're just getting started. All right, guys, as ever today, be sure to comment down below and know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I will see you tonight.